Okay, YouTube is now on.
We're live now, Chairman.
Thank you. Oh, good evening, everybody, and welcome to West Northants Council Interim Planning Committee, the Daventry District Council area. This is the only time you'll hear that title. There'll be a different title next time, and you won't hear Daventry again. Right, my name's Steve Osborne. I'm chairman for the moment until the elections. So I'm going over to Marina for a roll call so that you can see what councillors are here. And then I'll come to the agenda. Marina?
It's Jeverley, Chairman. Okay, members, if you could just confirm that you've got video and audio for me, please. Councillor Alan Chandler?
Yes, both.
Thank you. Councillor Cribbin?
Yes to both.
Councillor Dabbs?
All working, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Frost?
Many thanks, yep.
Thank you. Councillor Harris?
Yes to both, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Irving Swift?
Yes to both, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James?
Yes to both, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Longley?
Yes, both, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Matton?
Yes to both, thank you.
Councillor Parker?
Yes to both, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie?
Yes to both, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Robertson? I don't think I've seen him, no. Councillor Smith?
All good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wesley? I don't think he's here either. No. And obviously, Chairman, you've got video and audio. Oh, Councillor Wesley's just joining.
Right. So he can hear, can he?
He's not in quite yet, Chairman.
Oh, right. No yet, no luck yet, Jeff?
Yeah, he's just arrived, but he's on mute. Councillor Wesley, can you confirm if you've got audio and visual, please?
I have audio and visual. Apologies, I had a little bit of an internet issue there. So back on now.
Brilliant, thank you.
Right. We'll go to the agenda then. Apologies for absence. It can only be one, can there? Or none?
None received, Chairman.
Okay. Members' interests, disclosable on interests. None? Right. Party whipping arrangements.
None, Chairman, for the last time.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. I'll rely on you to say that each time. Members of the public that may be looking, we don't get together with groups of people of political or any other persuasion to decide how we're going to vote. We make our mind up on the night, and that is how it should be. There are no applications withdrawn or delegated. Any member of the public looking, I shall refer to councillors with their name councillor. Officers and our legal man, I shall refer to them by their Christian names, as I always do. So we start with the first application, which is in Long Butby. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Chairman. If you spare me a moment while I share my screen with everyone. Right, the application site is a relatively flat area of agricultural land and an elevated position to the south side of Watson Road. This is Watson Road here. And the site acts as via Blinko Road, which is actually part of the new residential development. The application actually seeks an outline consent for 16 units with just the access and the layout for consideration. Before we go into the application itself, I just want to point members to the actual late representations. We have recently received some further late representations from the key services, which confirms that the secondary education contributions will no longer be collected through the legal agreement as set out within the report, but will now be collected via the SIL route. So we're looking to remove that element from the report. Equally though, Northampton's CCG advises that there'll be insufficient capacity in the local healthcare system to absorb the anticipated increase in demand created by the proposal, and as such they'll be seeking financial contributions towards healthcare. So whilst we're taking out the contributions via the legal agreement for the secondary education, we'd like to input contributions for the Northampton CCG, Chairman. So if we, and that I also want to add that the only reason this application is before members tonight is because we're looking for members' authorisation for the arrangement of the legal agreement. You can see from the report that there are no objections to the application from either any of the statutory consultees or from the parish council. In terms of the proposed access, the Higher Risk Authority are happy that the proposed access meets all the necessary regulations. And in terms of the proposed layout, which is under consideration, all the proposed dwellings and the proposed dwellings from the existing units would all meet the necessary distances. And as such, we're recommending the application be approved, Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Local member, there are two of us. I'll start off. I don't have a problem with it. Once the majority of this site had planning permission.
Chairman, we have a speaker.
I do. Apologise. Thank you. I must be getting old. We do indeed have a speaker. Mr. Wiggins, I do apologise, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, and good evening to members of the Planning Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. I share your policy and development management officer's view that this application is fully in accordance with the development plan. In my opinion, there are no material considerations indicating that it should not be approved. As I think you were about to say, Chairman, the site forms part of a smaller part of a larger area of land that was granted outline planning permission in 2012. The majority of the site is in the process of being developed by Gelson Homes. The applicant retained this area for subsequent development. The site is bound on 3 sides by existing housing, and as your officer's report confirms, the majority of it is located within the defined limits of the village. I'm aware that the proposal has resulted in a small number of objections, and I'd like to briefly touch on 4 of those now. The proposed dwellings are sited such that all existing trees within the site boundary would be retained, and clearly any trees that are outside of the site would only be pruned with the owner's permission. The final scheme would incorporate a detailed landscaping scheme, and the intended permission contains provision for this to be secured and maintained. The concern raised by neighbouring occupiers that there is a fence or right of way within the site has been investigated by the applicant and their solicitors, and it's been confirmed that all of the land required for the proposal is owned by the applicant, and there are no legal rights of way existing. No significant loss of residential amenity would result from the proposal, despite the evident difference in levels that the occupiers of the neighbouring properties refer to. And this is confirmed on pages 11 and 12 of your officer's report. In terms of impact on the proposal on local doctors, surgery and schools, the report advises that all necessary contributions will be made towards healthcare and education, as the consultees have now confirmed that contributions are not required for early years or primary education. That being the case, the application proposal will clearly not give rise to an additional burden to local infrastructure. Your officer's report confirms that there are no objections to the application from the parish council or from any of the council's technical consultees, and I hope that members will support your officers in delivering a high quality housing proposal by approving the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wiggins. And again, I apologise for not letting you go first, which you should have done. Right, going first as local member, I was about to say that I didn't support this application years ago when it was part of a big application. The big application won on appeal, and once it's won on appeal, you have to blink your eyes and think again. So it now is part of a larger development. I don't have any problem with it whatsoever. The parish doesn't have any problem with it. And in fact, I'll go so far as to say that I propose the application be approved as per officer's advice. First of all, before I go to, can I have a seconder before I go to the other local member? I'm going to go to Councillor Longley. to second, as he's a local member as well. Councillor Longley.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I'm not going to say very much in that. All I'd say is it's more of it's a continuation of a long-standing arrangement, as you just described. And I'm glad to see that the finances are sorted out well, by the sound of my understanding of it, and that the officers will no doubt make sure we get the right arrangements on the site. So I'm for it, and I think that it's a good move. So you have my seconding. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, speakers. Anybody wish to speak on it? I don't see any hand. Oh, I see one hand. Councillor Dabbs.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Won't dwell very long on this because I think it's a foregone conclusion that we'll probably pass this, but let's see. Question on the library contribution. I think as the local members would recognise, the library is no longer owned by the County Council or run by the County Council. So what happens to that contribution? Does the Parish Council get it? Does the library get it directly? What happens to it? So if that can be confirmed. Another point is there any electric vehicle charging infrastructure being planned in this? Maybe this is at the reserve matter stage, but I think the developers need to note that I think we as councillors are very keen on the green agenda, and therefore think about that one, please. And just looking on page 7, where we've got the highways, commenting on that, and there was various comments about the parking layouts and so on, and then says revised drawings are now acceptable. So do I take it from that those comments have been resolved and highways are now happy? And that's it for me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chung, would you like to answer that?
I can't really answer the question about the libraries, I'm afraid. I'm sure that the contribution towards the libraries will go to the right place as they've been requested. In terms of the electrical charging points, I'm sure that they'll be taken into consideration during the reserve matter stage. Where at the moment we're only looking at the access and the layout in terms of matters for approval tonight. I'm sorry, I couldn't recall the very last query, Councillor Dabbs.
Councillor Dabbs?
Yeah, just trying to unmute myself. It was on the comments on page 7 on the parking. Looks like there were various issues, but looks like it might also have been resolved. So can you please confirm that?
Additional information was submitted by the applicant, and as far as I'm aware, those issues have now been resolved.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Irving-Swift.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a little thing on the. I have an echo. Do you have it?
So we've got 2 people talking. Can we try again? Mute yourself if you've got background noise. Okay, go again, Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, on the left rep, there is a West Northamptonshire lead local flood authority. They ask for to impose condition. Has that been taken into account or not? Because I think we should. I'm sure it has been, but just to make sure, because that is on the left rep at the same time as the CCG. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify for you, through you, Chairman, they're obviously submitted as part of the late representations. Going forward, in terms of the decision notice, they'll be placed on the decision notice.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to make the same point actually as Councillor Irving-Swift, so I hope that is picked up, because it does appear to be an issue that needs factoring into the conditions. The only other point I was going to make is it does look like it's a very nice natural habitat area, which of course we lose often when we build like this. In principle, I have no objections. I think it's a good mix of housing style. And I just hope that the agent can make sure that there is a very decent landscaping plan. Good to hear that the trees are going to be kept in the boundaries, but really anything that can be done to make sure the landscaping reflects the loss of some of that habitat. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie next.
Thank you, Chair. I hadn't really been planning to comment on this application, but I assume that if we pass it, we're also accepting the advice that comes at the end on page 14 before it goes on to the conditions. And I was just struck by what the officers reported about the uncertainty about library contributions. And we as a committee say we insist there should be, or we're advising there should be library contributions, but without any idea what these library contributions would be for. We can hardly ask a developer in Long Buckby to put up library contributions for people in Northampton or Daventry or Dorset or somewhere else. And it just strikes me, this seems to be a sort of hangover from an old regime where we had a county council that actually ran lots of libraries. And should we not be a little bit clearer about what advice we're accepting here?
Right, John, do you want to make a comment on that?
I think in terms of the library services, the need for libraries hasn't been removed because we've become a unitary authority. Those services are still required and there's still a necessity to address those contributions. And at the moment, our advice on the key services that they are still required at this particular stage. Obviously, in the event that they're no longer necessary and those library services are no longer provided, then we would revisit that with the developer. And I'm wholly sure the developer and his agent will be looking to consider that at a point when we come to negotiate further the legal agreement.
Thank you. The legal man wishes to say something on it.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, really, to be honest, the planning officers covers the point whereby it's still policy requirement at this stage. So, as we say, if there's a legitimate requirement for it at this stage. If things change, then that will be reflected in the future.
Right. I would say as a local member that it perhaps is different from other libraries. We have a library group that runs the library, parish council that pays for the lease. The library group have access to all the 106 monies that have been allocated over the time for Long Buckby Library. So any money allocated that way would go to the group, would not go to the parish. The parish don't want anything to do with the running of it, the finance side of it, just to collect, just to pay the lease money. So that's the position of the local library. Right, any other comments? If not, we'll move to the vote. We have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded as per officers' advice. All those in favour? Over to you for the roll call, Jeff.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Chandler?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Cribbin?
For.
Councillor Dabbs?
For.
Councillor Frost?
For.
Councillor Harris?
For.
Councillor Irving Swift?
For.
Councillor James? Councillor Longley?
For.
Councillor Matton?
For.
Councillor Parker?
For.
Councillor Ritchie? Councillor Robertson? Oh, he's gone again. Councillor Smith?
For.
Councillor Wesley?
For.
And you, Chairman, were in favour.
I was in favour as well.
Oh, right, thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. The application is approved. We move on now to Walgrave. Over to you, officers.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm doing this one.
Thank you, Keith.
Hopefully you can see that. I'm just trying to get it into slideshare.
Speaker, Chairman.
We can't see anything at the moment.
Oh, I don't know what's happened there then. Let me try again.
Yes, something's happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it
Yeah.
says. Yeah,
Can you see that now?
date.
Yeah. Walgrave. Yeah. I knew there'd be a technical hitch again. There always is. Never mind. Yeah, this is a site at Walgrave, Sheldon's Lane, which is quite a narrow road at the end of Sheldon's Lane. There was a large house built here cumulatively several years ago, and it was built in this kind of linear form because what is effectively that part of the wall of the house used to be a stone wall that we said back in the day formed the village confines. The person that owned that house owned the surrounding land and got planning permission to build a house on this land on appeal next door. And now this application's come in to build a self-contained annex on the land in between. So that's just showing you the initial submission and a dotted line, which was then thought to be the village boundary. So it went beyond the village boundary. That was the initial proposal. Then there was a first amendment, which put it inside the village boundary, which was that. And the current proposal now, the final amendment, as we're calling it, this is now based on a plan, which is effectively a blown up version of what's in the settlements and countryside local plan, where we have a plan that sets the village boundary for Walgrave, and it's now wholly within inside the village boundary. And that's the elevation. So that was the scheme that was put in 2020 for an outline application, which was referred to. That's obviously been withdrawn. So this is the view of the site. It's at the end of the road here between the existing house, obviously on the left, the big house, and the house that was allowed on appeal on the right. It's effectively the end of the cul-de-sac, if you like, and that's a turning head area. I think the thing to note here is the entrance through there, which leads to the parking area, which will be available for the use by the annex. And that's just showing you some of the photos of the site, which is mown land, effectively, partly used as garden, but we've never really been exactly sure where the garden finished and the countryside started. That's looking up the line. You'll see it's quite narrow there. And I think it's important to say, yeah, there's a good example of it. Highways are happy with this on the understanding that it remains as an annex and it's not going to be a separate dwelling. So we're proposing a condition to that effect to maintain it as a, that shows the site again, to maintain it as a separate, so it can't be sold off as a separate dwelling. So subject to that condition and the others that you see there before you, Chairman, we think this is acceptable and we've recommended approval. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Keith. We have a speaker. Mrs. Stoneman, over to you.
Thank
you.
you.
Have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. My client and I have been involved in extensive, detailed and proactive discussions with the planning officer in resolving this outline application for the construction of a detached annex, which is to be occupied by the applicant's daughter, Ellie. Ellie has Down syndrome and requires a degree of independence and privacy, which has been supported by evidence provided by medical, educational and social service professionals who confirm there's a compelling and substantiated need to provide this annex for the future well-being and health of the applicant's daughter. As members will be aware, the personal circumstances of this application are a material consideration in the assessment of this application. There are no technical objections to the proposal. The highway engineer has confirmed that the proposal would not result in any increase in traffic. The highway engineer has requested, as has the planning officer, parish council and district councillor, that a planning condition is imposed tying the annex to the main dwelling, which the applicants are more than happy to accept. To confirm, the proposed annex will be served by the existing vehicular access serving the main property. No additional entrance is to be provided. As outlined within the officer's report, we have sought to address issues raised during the consideration of this application and now provide a scheme in which the proposed building is sited wholly within the confines of the village, is smaller in size, will only be single storey, and furthermore has been sited further away from the boundary of the neighbouring property, Kilkenny House. It is important to bring to your attention that the owners of Kilkenny House confirmed to the planning officer in writing last month that they no longer had an issue regarding the view from their property towards the proposed annex. As detailed within the officer's report, a separation distance of 5.7 metres is proposed from the side elevation of the annex and the side elevation of the neighbouring property. To confirm, there are no side-facing windows shown on the proposed annex or direct side-facing windows on the neighbouring property. In regard to Rose Cottage, located to the south of the application site, as confirmed in the officer's report, this property is some 19 metres to the nearest elevation of the proposed building. We would therefore conclude that the proposed development would not cause any material harm to the living conditions of any adjoining properties by reason of overlooking or loss of light, thereby meeting the requirements of the policy ENV 10. Objections have been raised by third parties on the resulting impact of this proposal on parking on Sheldon's Lane. As confirmed earlier, the proposal would not result in any net increase in traffic associated with the development, and there are no grounds that this development would have an unacceptable impact on highway safety. In addition, there are only 4 properties directly served on Sheldon's Lane, as confirmed by the highway engineer, and not 5 as outlined in the objections received on the application. Finally, as summarised within the officer's report, the applicants have provided further justification for the need for the annex and its location, which cannot be disputed. The proposed development will allow for the applicant's daughter to live independently with the close support of her parents and in the surroundings that she is familiar with and feels safe within. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The local member isn't present. I have 2 speakers indicating. Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, it's just a clarification. I don't know if it's for Keith or it's for our lawyer. What is the difference? Because in summary, it's for incidental use and not ancillary use. What is the difference? Because in all my years in planning, I never had an incidental use. So can we have that clarified? Otherwise, I don't see any problem with the application, but I'm surprised of that term because it's the first time I saw it. And would it be better to be ancillary instead of incidental? Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to do it, Keith, or shall I let our legal man do it?
I'll be interested in hearing what Jamie has to say, but I was just going to say I think it means the same thing, to be honest. I mean, planning permitted development legislation always talks about outbuildings and things being incidental, used for purposes incidental to the enjoyment of the dwelling house, which effectively means they aren't separate. And an annex is a similar thing, really. So I would say, effectively, it means the same thing, unless Jamie wants to say anything different.
Jamie?
No, Keith, I'm quite happy with that interpretation that they imply the same thing. So I don't think there's a risk in terms of it creating a different position than what is perceived to be the position in relation to the proposed development.
Thank you.
So could I come back and if they propose the same thing, because I have never seen incidental, could I propose an agreement, but instead of incidental, we change into ancillary, because I'm more comfortable with it. Thank you. If somebody is ready to support my little amendment, I would be very happy to propose the planning application.
Your comments on that, Keith?
Well, as I say, I think it's the same word, really, Chairman, or
so
same meaning.
Right.
I don't mind.
Okay. Right. So it's a proposal then, Councillor Irving-Swift.
So the proposal is the same, but instead of incidental, I would like to have ancillary. Thank you.
The word changed. Okay. Do you have a seconder? I've got 2 hands from Councillor Robertson. He's about to speak next anyway. So, Councillor Robertson, yes, if you want to second it as well.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to go along with that amendment and to second the proposal to accept officer's advice here. I just wanted one clarification. That was where the property has been moved to fit in with what was the boundary line between the village envelope and open countryside. Does that mean they may not use the property to the rear as a garden, or does it just continue anyway?
Keith?
Yeah. As I alluded to on the original property, actually, technically everything in the red line is effectively residential use. anything outside the red line would still remain agricultural to the north. But I think we've accepted on the main house and made to a certain extent on this, if no boundary fence is put up and people just, use it to kick a football around on or whatever, we wouldn't particularly get upset about it. So if they start extending out into the countryside and have flower beds and fences and whatever, that would effectively require a change of use to residential curtilage. So the answer is basically it has to stay.
Everything's frozen,
as officially residential.
Thank you, Keith. That's all I wanted to know.
Can anybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
My internet has gone.
Oops. You're back. You're on mute now, Steve. Sorry. Sorry, Chairman. I should have said Chairman. You're on mute.
You're on mute, Steve.
I haven't got him.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm afraid my internet went off. All right.
Yep.
Oh dear.
May I propose the Deputy Chair takes over so that the Chairman can reboot?
That's a good proposal. I would second that certainly, but I think we can hear him and he can't hear us now.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Ah.
I'm afraid my internet is cut out twice. I don't know why. There's no reason logically, but it happens to all of us at times. Okay, so you've finished seconding the proposal, have you, Councillor Robertson?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Right. Was that a yes? Has he finished the second?
Yes, I have, Chair.
Right. Okay, thank you. I apologise. Next speaker is Councillor Ritchie.
Good, Chair. I just really have one question about this application. I feel slightly embarrassed about asking it because I must have been in this committee for 5 years, and I'm sure that each year there has been something similar that comes up. An application where a strong part of the justification appears to be the personal circumstances of the applicant, and whether it is justifiable to consider that when we're talking about building premises that will be there for decades to come. I think there's an argument that we should take account of what people's housing needs are. But this is quite a substantial dwelling that is being constructed, not necessarily by the standards of the houses around about it, but 2 bedrooms and a lounge and a kitchenette. Seems an awful lot for incidental use, or whatever phrase we're going to use for it. It seems much more than just an annex. I don't know the area, but the point has been made too within the papers that the original house is a large house already. I just feel slightly uncomfortable about going along if the only real reason that for supporting this is a sort of sympathy vote for the applicant and the applicant's family. If it were not for that, I would feel this simply didn't make any sense whatsoever. And therefore, I'm not convinced that this is an application that I would be happy supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Ritchie. Councillor Robertson, you wish to say something else?
Yeah, but just to follow on that, whilst I understand precisely what Councillor Ritchie is saying, the description you just gave doesn't sound to be excessive to me for anybody. disabled or otherwise. 2 bedrooms and a kitchenette. Well, that's not an enormous property, even though it is quite large for an annex.
Thank you.
Yeah, through you, Chairman, I would just add as well. Obviously, the policies for Walgrave allow for developments within the village confines, and obviously this is within the village confines. So, standalone, really, if somebody put in for an infill plot in the village confines, as it stands now, it does seem to meet the criteria of the policy normally. Obviously, the additional thing that you can take into consideration and give weight to the personal circumstances as well. So if there was any doubt, I think in terms of the personal circumstances, they can be used as additional considerations. But I think as officers look at it now it's been moved into the village confines, it actually complies with policy in any event.
Thank you. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chair. I simply wanted to point out that this young lady apparently requires a live-in carer, hence the 2nd bedroom.
Thank you. Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, just for Councillor Ritchie, I have been on that committee far too long, and I do remember every so often, but not during Councillor Ritchie term, but I think in my 12 years, we had 2 cases like that where individual circumstances were taken into account. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ritchie, you wish to say something else?
Just a little follow-up to the report from the officer, that if we're in a situation, if the building is now within the village confines, and people would be allowed to build it in any case, why are we attaching conditions? Why do we not just say, all right, it's not for ancillary use, it's, it is there. When the existing family have got no further need for it, it can be sold on individually. It seems a sort of strange package to put together. And if we're saying that it doesn't, there doesn't need to be an argument about social or medical need for having this, this building, why are we going to sort of put all these requirements on it?
Keith.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll answer that.
Well, I say, Chairman, the main point really is that obviously highways ask for it to be done. And as you've seen, it's quite a narrow lane. So there would be possibly concerns from highways if this was to be a separate application for a separate standalone dwelling, shall we say. They may well have taken a different view and they may well have objected to it. So on the basis that it is ancillary, but then obviously people might have said, which has already been said, well, you've already got a big house, what do you need it for? As ancillary accommodation, and then obviously the personal circumstances come into effect. So I think it comes as a package on that basis, Chairman.
Thank you. No more questions? I don't see any more hands. Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved with the slight alteration of 1 word. She's been seconded. All those in favour, please tell Jev. Jev.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Chandler.
4.
Councillor Cribbin.
4.
Councillor Dabbs.
4.
Councillor Frost.
4.
Councillor Harris.
4.
Councillor Irving-Swift.
4.
Councillor James. Sorry, Councillor James.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Longley.
4.
Councillor Matton.
4. Thank you.
Councillor Parker.
4.
Councillor Ritchie.
Abstain.
Councillor Robertson.
4.
Councillor Smith.
4.
Councillor Wesley.
That's a 4.
And Councillor Osborne.
4.
That's 14 in favour and 1 abstention, Chairman.
The application is approved with that minor amendment. Thank you. Next we go to, I think it's Dodford. Over to you, officers.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, this is a site at Wheaton Lane, Dodford, but you can also see it from the A5. This is the A5. that's the canal, that's the railway line, just to put it in its context where it sits. There's currently a portable cabin, for want of a better word, on the site, and this application proposes to move it to a higher part of the site next to the canal, and it's claimed obviously that it is a traveller accommodation, so it has to be looked at in that context. You'll see from the summary of the report that as the council has already met its requirement to provide such sites, each individual application is considered on its merits against the criteria in the relevant policy, which is now policy HO9 in the local plan. And we've identified conflict in respect of access and highway safety, accessibility to a range of local services, including public transport, and the impact of the proposed on the landscape and local infrastructure, and obviously on the character of the adjacent Grand Union Canal Conservation Area. We don't feel that resiting the building next to that is going to preserve or enhance the conservation area. So again, it's contrary to policy on that basis. And our overall view is that given that provision of further pitches would exceed identified needs, the justifications that we've had have been considered, but they don't override the policy presumption against. So on that basis, we've recommended it for refusal, Chairman. I'll just go through the slides. So that's the building. As you see there, it's already on site, but that isn't going to be its final resting place if it was approved. These are some views from obviously within the site. That's a view from the A5. These are from the canal, current views from the canal towpath. So you see that it's going to move nearer to the canal. These are showing how you move up to higher ground and how you get into the site. This area here is a gate. That's roughly where the cabin's going to go now, or proposed to go now. Here's some more pictures of the surrounding land. This shows you the entrance. This one's probably relevant. The one with this is the canal bridge here. This is what a highway's concern is. Obviously, there's a canal bridge here, so this is the entrance into the site. This is the lane. So this is the entrance going into the site. You go in through this gated road, and then, as I say, you go down across these tracks along this private driveway into the site. So on that basis, as I say, Chairman, we've identified conflicts with policy criteria. We don't think this is a suitable site for travel accommodation. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. We have a speaker, Colin Newton, who's speaking on behalf of the parish meeting. Over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Colin Newton, clerk to Dodford Parish Meeting. I represent the residents of Dodford Parish who've given me a clear mandate tonight to voice their profound opposition to this planning application. This application is not supported by any relevant planning policy. Policy HO9 of the Settlements and Countryside Plan clearly states that the need for traveller accommodation has, and I quote, been exceeded through permissions granted. This application is therefore not driven by any demonstrable need. Reference is made in the application for the site to accommodate one traveller family. The reality of this vague unit of occupancy is clear to see in the photograph of the nearby traveller site at Stow Hill in Weedon. Thank you. The site has seen the unlawful addition of a further 5 static mobile homes, all seemingly occupied by other members of the same traveller family. Already the site for this application has become the subject of numerous planning breaches involving unauthorised siting and occupation of a large 5-berth static mobile home, a storage building, a play area, and more recently, track surfacing work. Additionally, the unlawfully sited static mobile home is also the subject of an ongoing environmental investigation concerning sewer pipes from the unit recently being installed directly into the ground, with no evidence of associated excavations to suggest the installation of a septic tank. The picture clearly shows these two pipes entering the ground. The proposed access to the site joins Weedon Lane immediately below the summit of its notorious Humpback Canal Bridge. The declared vision splay of just 2.4 metres to this bridge falls well short of nationally published statistics, which indicate that at a realistic 20-mile-an-hour crossing speed, a total safe stopping distance of 12 metres would be needed. This is therefore felt to be a serious road safety issue with large, slow-moving vehicles entering and leaving the site. Weedon Lane is the main access into the village of Dodford from the new Northampton to Daventry Link Road, as well as being the only permitted access and egress from the busy Dodmore House wedding venue, whose access is very visible and safe, being some 45 metres from the apex of the canal bridge. The application site immediately adjoins the Grand Union Canal Conservation Area, a heritage asset which would be unacceptably impacted both visually and audibly by this proposal, as would Dodford's nearby award-winning Dodmore House wedding venue, facing the site just 370 metres away across the canal. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll, of course, be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Right, local members. First of all, Councillor Smith, anyway.
Thank you, Chair. Well, officers, thank you for this report. It's comprehensive. I think it gives members all the information they need. I clearly agree with the parish council at Dodford, and Weedon also object to this application. And I would propose that we agree with officers' advice and refuse.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Frost, yes. Do you wish to say something, Councillor Frost?
No, just endorse what Councillor Smith said.
Okay, thank you. There are two more local members. I don't know whether they wish to speak. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Only to echo the words of Dodford Parish Meeting and those of Councillor Smith. I know that Councillor Amos has done a lot of work on this particular issue and would also support the officer's recommendation of refusal. The highways concerns weigh heavy in our minds, as well as the visual impact and the other harms that have been set out in the report to local amenity. As the report makes very, very clear, the planning obligations to the travelling community have been met at this moment in time. And I think the report is also very clear that that would be the only possible reason for considering approval of this application. So I do hope the committee agrees with Councillor Smith's recommendation to go with officer's advice. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know whether Councillor Amos is here or not. Councillor Amos, are you listening? No. Okay.
He's just coming into the meeting, Chairman.
He's just coming into the meeting. Right. Well, tell me when he's switched on.
You say his name 3 times, he appears, Mr. Chairman.
He's there, Chairman.
He's there now, is he?
Yes.
Councillor Amos, are you there?
Good evening, Chairman.
Right.
I am here.
Right. Do you wish to add any views, express any views to the Dodford application? The other members have. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've read all through the policies. I think that very definitely I would seek it to be refused based on all of that and all of our experiences over the last year.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chairman.
Right, people indicating to speak. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm looking at page 34 of our papers. There's the report from Dodford Parish Council, and in the second numbered paragraph, there is reference to the Stowhill Traveller site and the reality of what they say is one travelling family about what it might become. Now, a couple of pages later, we have something from Weedon Beck Parish Council, where it's almost as if they have had a little bit of discussion they make reference to exactly the same site at the E5 at Stow Hill. In the presentation, the gentleman from Dodford even put in pictures of Stow Hill. I find that totally repugnant. The idea that we should question the good faith of an applicant or of anyone because they might belong to a social group, members of which have acted in a way that we would not approve of, is the essence of discrimination. And I think it is absolutely, I'm really disappointed that the officers allowed these words to actually go into these reports, and that you, Chair, did not interrupt when when references were being made to Stow Hill by the external speaker. I'm sorry.
We'll do when you're finished. I'll interrupt when I'll come in when you're finished, Councillor.
Very well. Well, I am finished, but I don't think I have anything further I want to say, or I will not vote on this particular application, because I just feel so disgusted by the process.
Right. I will say as chairman that I was listening out for any comments that I didn't think were correct and right as far as travellers were concerned, and I didn't hear any. As far as the relation to the Stow Hill site and the pictures, I was very close to saying, I'm sorry, but keep to the own application. This is not so relevant. But to consider that it's adjoining virtually, it's the next place along. It's not far away. It's the same division. And I think it was right for them to relate to it. Had it been, let's say, a different council area, and they were kept relating to it, well, I think it was wrong. But I was very close to listening. Well, why are they going on about this? And I would have stopped it. So that's my answer to what you said, Councillor Ritchie. The next speaker is Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm glad you mentioned that, because this isn't the only occasion when references have been made to other cases or other conditions in other applications. Indeed, Councillor Ritchie himself referred to the possible intentions of the owner of the house in the previous case that we discussed, whether it was possible to sell that off separately at some time in the future. So I think we should always make it clear, and Councillor Ritchie should be consistent in this too, that each application is considered on its own merits, and that's how we're looking at it. And on this occasion, I'm looking at this application entirely on its own merits. What happens up at Stow Hill is irrelevant to this case, but I intend to vote against approval of this application. Against. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just echoing Councillor James, if we just look at this, it's a building in open countryside. It goes against policies, HO9, BM5, EMB7, and they're clearly laid out in the officer's conclusion. So we just have to look at that and nothing else. It's against policy, and that's what it is, irrespective of what it is. It's against policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wesley.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I was going to say similar things, really. I think it was. I think the presentations were a little bit unfortunate, and I think it was unfortunate some members actually used the Stow Hill example as if it was almost predetermined. I'm not comfortable with this site anyway, but I just want it on the record that that my views are discounting the words about the other site. It is purely, as has just been said, on policy and how it actually sits and what it actually does, and nothing to do with anything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. If there's no other speakers, which there doesn't appear to, oh, wait a minute, I've got some hands suddenly appeared. One more, Councillor Irving Swift.
Yes, just a question. The static, can you hear me? The static caravan is on track. So what is things? Are we waiting for an appeal against if we decide to go with officer advice, which at the moment I am entirely satisfied with the officer advice, and we'll have an enforcement after, because we have a building on that side that will not be allowed. So what is the subsequent sequence? Are we going to wait for an appeal? And if the appeal is again in favor of the refusal, are we going to enforce straight away? Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the vote, Keith, could you explain to the committee what the sequence is now?
Yeah, yes, Chairman. I might be jumping the gun slightly, obviously, because you haven't refused it yet. But yes, if you do refuse it, obviously there's a right to appeal against refusal. But obviously, where the caravan is now, or the mobile home is now, is not actually this site. So again, there's a possibility we could serve an enforcement notice against that anyway. But I think it's one we're going to have a discussion on another day. Obviously, enforcement matters in the new constitution and are delegated to officers. So I'd imagine we'll be having a discussion amongst ourselves as to about our way forward on this one.
Thank you, Keith. Right, we have a proposal that the application be refused for the given reasons, which has been seconded. All those in favour of that, over to you, Jevely, to indicate.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Chandler.
For.
Councillor Cribbin.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
Abstain.
Councillor Frost.
For.
Councillor Harris.
Abstain.
Councillor Irving Swift.
For.
Councillor James. Councillor James.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Longley.
For.
Councillor Matton.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
In.
Councillor Robertson.
For.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Wesley.
For.
And you, Chairman.
For.
12 in favour of refusal and 3 abstentions, Chairman.
Right, the application is refused. We move on to the next two, which I shall deal with together. So the discussion, I hope, can you hear me still?
Yes.
You are right. I can't see you for some reason. Anyway, I shall take the next two together, but the votes will be separate. So I shall allow the speakers longer than 3 minutes because they'll be talking about both of them. Okay, over to you, officers. I've got vision back now, so I'm okay.
Thank you, Chairman. Home farm situated on the west side of Francis Row, which is a narrow lane which leads off the main village of Pistow. The lane slopes down from the main street, and home farm is actually situated on the corner on the bottom of the bend itself. The farmhouse dates from the early 18th century and is 2 stories of attic and cellar, and the house stands gable end onto the highway. Until recently, the property was bounded on the east side by a historic stone wall, which was elevated above the grass embankment. The limestone was approximately 2 metres above ground level on the external side, and it was retained approximately 1.2 metres of earth on the garden side. Members will recall back in 2019, March 2019, that an application was submitted for demolition of the existing garden wall and its partial rebuilding using the same stone where possible, at the front face of an underground garage to be constructed within the rear garden, and also the provision of a new pedestrian access. Those applications were refused by this committee and subsequently subject of an appeal in December 2019. The inspector agreed with the council's conclusions that the proposed development would cause harm to the significance and setting of the designated asset and to the character and appearance of the local area as well. In October 2020, officers observed that the refused works were underway and substantially progressed. The boundary wall had been demolished and the stone cleared away from the site. The garden had been excavated and the shell of the garage was constructed. These works represented a clear breach of planning and listed building control. And in November of last year, members sought authorisation from this committee to serve enforcement notice to secure the removal of the unauthorised garage and the reinstatement of the land to its former level. Following that committee and the authorisation from members, officers visited sites with the planning agent to make a full inspection of the development. This was followed up by a written request for clarification on a number of points in preparation for the enforcement notice. More recently, a new planning and listed building applications were submitted. It's important to note that these applications, which are subject of the members tonight, were not subject to pre-application discussions. The appealed applications were for a two-bay garage with timber doors and a workshop accessed internally. A pedestrian gate was shown adjacent to the house, providing access to the rear garden. As partially constructed, there are two-door garage door openings and a window in the front elevation. Under the current proposal, the applications of one of the garage doors and the window would be omitted. The pedestrian gate at the south of would be retained. It is the applicant's case that these changes would restore a greater length of the stone face, and the garage door openings would have a roller shutter door which would sit within a narrow door frame. I think it's important for me to add that development plan policies give great weight to the conservation of our heritage assets, and there is clear steer that any harm would require clear and convincing justification. And where harm is identified, this should be taken and balanced against the public benefits of any proposal. The inspector for the appeals described the stone wall as being clearly linked to the listed building and forming part of the significance of the heritage asset. The inspector also concluded the proposal would result in harm to the significance of the designated heritage asset. The applicants consider that the proposed changes to the refuse scheme would reduce its overall size and make significantly less change to the character and appearance of the area and the setting of the listed building. The current proposal is to install a roller shutter door within the opening rather than traditional side opening timber doors as originally proposed. The modern design of the door is not in keeping with the character of the historic site. Officers consider the proposed design changes to the scheme would not restore the original character and appearance of the wall. The remaining door opening, together with the excavation and regrading works associated with the construction of the garage and the creation of the driveway, would materially change the appearance of the wall and its role as a means of enclosure for the rear garden of the farmhouse. There's also additional harm caused by loss of all the original fabric from the wall. As such, officers are of the firm opinion that the proposal would result in harm. As a result of reaching this conclusion that there would be harm, that harm should be weighed against the public benefits. In the previous application, the proposal would have provided 2 parking spaces. Under the current proposal, there would be a provision of 1 parking space. And in concluding, the inspector's comments stated that whilst there was evidence provided about the lack of parking, and equally evidence was also provided about the current fuelling arrangements, the inspector considered that the benefits of the proposal were not sufficient to outweigh the harm to the significance and setting of the designated heritage asset. Officers consider that this remains to be the case, and as such we're recommending that this application be refused, Chairman. Thank you.
Young, can you just take it off the screen share
Yeah.
so we can see everybody?
Is the Chairman still there? Sorry. He's on mute still.
Oh, he's gone mute again, yeah. You gone mute, Chairman.
Chairman, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Chairman.
Right, Linda Carter, you have 3 minutes. Is there any Linda Carter there?
Thought there was, yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Right, you have 3 minutes, young lady.
Do you have the pictures available, please?
If you both remember, I can screen share again.
Thank you. The Parish Council supports this application and would like to detail 4 reasons. The proposal meets a condition now lapsed placed by Daventry District Council on the development of the barn at Home Farm into a separate dwelling, which required the owner of Home Farm to provide off-road parking to the rear of the property. Mr. Newitt believed he was fulfilling that requirement when he first submitted the proposal. The Parish Council would like to emphasise the significant parking issues in the parish, in line with most rural parishes, that this proposal seeks to address, and which have never attracted objections from the Highways Authority. Indeed, this proposal has raised issues that need to be addressed, but no documented objection that we can see. Francis Row is no longer a country lane, which it has been described as, with a number of developments being allowed to have significantly altered appearance of the area and have largely been made in order to accommodate off-road parking. That's actually picture 2, and you can see in the distance the chimney of Home Farm. Could I just look up picture 1, please? Please?
Just bear with me, I have to go through the pictures again.
This is the entrance to Francis Row, and you can see Home Farm in the distance. And as you can see, both these previous applications have made significant impact on the bank and the old stone wall that surrounds the opposite side of the road. Both have been allowed, neither application amended or refused. The third reason is that the stone wall would need to be rebuilt anyway, regardless of any works already undertaken, as a large section fell down in the wet weather in the winter of 2009 to 2009, which you should be able to see on picture 3, hopefully. That large section of wall fell on its own embankment and could have caused significant injury. We were advised by Mr. McDowell that this wall predates 1948. The amount of concrete and brick that was holding it together certainly doesn't predate 1948. And he also suggested that it required listed building consent because it was attached to the farmhouse. If it had been attached to the farmhouse, it would have taken a significant proportion of the side wall of the house with it. No damage to the farmhouse resulted. So I've lost my notes now. Sorry, I've lost my notes. I can't find them. Right. Finally, the Parish Council is concerned at the inconsistencies in the way planning applications within the parish are dealt with. This is the only recent example of a refusal of consent for some years, including applications to listed buildings. And despite the council objecting to others on valid planning grounds, they've always been accepted. Residents are welcome at our meeting and we listen to their views before submitting our comments, which is why we have consistently supported this development, as have the immediate neighbours, who are all aware of these very local issues, which are often not obvious to planning officers, who of necessity visit during the day when most people are away from their properties.
That's 3 minutes, Chairman.
This property here that you...
Can you wind up, please?
Yes, the property number 1 that you can see had a number of significant trees there, which we sought to secure by TPOs, but were advised by the planning authority that it wasn't necessary because they were protected. They were demolished to allow the application there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Second speaker is Barry Wayne, who is for the application. Over to you, Barry.
Chairman, councillors, on the 18th of November, this committee resolved to institute enforcement proceedings to secure the removal of an existing part structure and to reinstate it to its formal level, and the reinstatement of a listed wall. That occurred shortly after I was instructed on this particular matter. At my client's request, a site meeting was held with officers to consider how this was likely to be achieved. I was informed that my client would be given more details as to how this was to be achieved prior to the enforcement notice being served. We haven't received any such advice, nor has any enforcement notice been served. So, Chairman, we don't know how your officers envisage what they consider acceptable as a reinstatement. We don't know. And tonight, Chairman, you don't know what you're comparing the application before you with. You can compare it with the previous refusal, and it's clear that this compares favourably with that. The appeal inspector objected to the scale of the double garage, the doors in particular, considering them to be dominant in the street scene. This scheme before you significantly reduces the perceived impact, reduces the doors to 1, increases the mounding and the replacement walling. Support from the parish council and local residents confer this is the case, and this committee can take a view on that. That's not a problem. Chairman, what you can't take a view on is whether this is acceptable in relation to the outcome of the enforcement notice. This is not a normal situation where you can be shown before and after plans and photographs, as you've seen tonight. It's been relatively straightforward. This is very difficult because of the way the development has taken place, and particularly the rear wall, which holds back the garden area. The question then is it reasonable for this committee to make a formal decision on this application, knowing half the facts? In fact, not even half the facts, because the report before you makes scant reference to the approval of a garage in this same location in 1986. You've heard the parish council and seen letters of support, but they also don't know the alternative. What they do know is that what is being proposed now is acceptable to local residents. This is a site which needs to be seen to appreciate the problems of reinstatement and the opportunities the application before you offers to the future of the listed building. Firstly, it solved the problem of water into the basement of the building and secured its future. Secondly, it allows for on-street parking and removes the need for my client to park in the highway at a narrow part of the road. Chairman, this in my opinion cries out for more information and a site visit before a reasonable decision can be made. I appreciate the difficulties of reorganisation and committees, but that's no reason to make a formal decision tonight. It's not a straightforward application. It has consequences, whatever is decided. My point tonight is that this committee, in whatever form it is in the near future, should have all the information to make a decision. And tonight, Chairman, this is sadly lacking. My plea is therefore this application be deferred to enable your office to set out clearly what they consider will satisfy the requirements of an enforcement notice and what weights they should give to the previous permission. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Barry. I'll call you Barry because I know you. Right, local members. First of all, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I shall not comment at this stage. I would like to hear the debate on this. This was very well discussed previously. I very much hear what our Stowe Nine Churches Parish Council said. So yeah, I would like just to reserve the right to speak. Thank you, Chair.
You can do. Right, Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, here tonight to support and echo the words of the parish council, and really I would emphasise the efforts that the applicant has gone to reduce the harm caused by the removal of the curtilage wall. I think the main aspect that I would highlight to the committee is in terms of the wall, the very much changed nature of that wall since its original application. Following the demolition, it's become clear that significant work has been undertaken to that wall over the years, not by the current occupant of the property, I hasten to add, and whilst officers have been able to verify that the wall in one form or another has been in existence since before 1948, I don't think it is very much in dispute that there have been significant changes to the character and the appearance of that wall over the decades. And therefore I would ask the committee to consider very carefully really how much of an asset in heritage terms this wall actually is. I don't think the photos that we've seen tonight make it abundantly clear that the wall is on a part of Francis Row that is not a prominent part of the village, although the wall is clearly visible as someone drives down Francis Row once they pull off the main street of the village. We're not talking about the main street scene in the village. So I would ask councillors therefore to show a degree of open-mindedness and understanding in this application, given that, in my view at least, the wall in question is of extremely limited heritage value, and therefore I believe that would mitigate any question of harm in this application, and would, I hope, allow committee members to show some discretion and consider approving the application.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Amos.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd sort of like to reiterate Councillor Brown's words. Really, there has been a serious breach on this wall. That's very, very clear. But, we are where we are now. And by building the wall again, it is still going to be a 2021 wall. So I think, therefore, we really need to be pragmatic about this and face the present situation. The parish council has, from the very beginning, as we've already heard, been so supportive of doing this work, and we've also heard, that there was permission for parking at the back of this building. So therefore, we can see that although breaches have been made, we are now left with a situation where we can get 4 cars off the verge and reinstate a wall that looks very similar to what there was before, although it will be new, in the area which doesn't allow access to a garage, which takes 4 cars off the road. And I think that the very fact that the verges around that very narrow road and on that sharp corner, and if anybody has been up there to view this application thoroughly, they will see exactly what I mean, and also why the Parish Council of Stoneline Churches is so keen that this should be accepted. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I've got several speakers. I'll give you an indication of where you are and where you are in the queue. Councillor Robertson's first, Councillor Wesley's second, Councillor Chandler's third, and Councillor James is fourth. That's what it is at the moment. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to press the point regarding listed buildings, everybody who's been on the planning committee for any length of time will now understand that harm to a listed building is harm, whether it be significant or less than significant. It is still harm. It can only be weighed against the public benefit, not the private benefit, the public benefit. Now, the public benefit here is clearly parking. It's been argued quite substantially that the benefits of parking outweigh the harm even if it's less than substantial, to a listed building. If that's what we feel, then it's up to us. Now, the other thing to take into consideration, but it's not a legal matter, I don't think, is the fact that the parish council are unusually at odds with what officers feel about this. Now, officers have recommended that we refuse this and take the whole matter to law by going around the enforcement procedures, which is justifiable because they were told previously that they should not do this, irrespective of the fact that the wall fell down or not. They did it. They started to build the garage. Now, you know, there are the facts. Where do we stand on this? Do we stand with the people, which they are quite clearly for it, or do we stand with officers who are quite clearly against it on public grounds? That's all I have to say on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Wesley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think previously I didn't see a massive problem with this. I know I had the listed building aspect of it explained to me quite extensively, but you can see the situation, and as has already been said, we are where we are on this, and I still think that despite the rules, that wall isn't of significance, and there is, as Councillor Robertson has just said, a demonstrable aspects of public good on this. It's the parish. The parish wants it. The parish is the direct representative of the people of the village, and I think we should go against officers' advice.
Thank you, Councillor Wesley. Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. I speak as the heritage champion of the former Daventry District Council. I obviously cannot support this application for the reasons which have been rehearsed many times. It is against policy and it's against the regulations regarding the support for listed structures. Of course, necessary repair and maintenance is allowed. This goes beyond that and therefore should not be allowed because it does cause significant harm to the curtilage of the listed structure home farm. And the fact that the wall will look different doesn't alter the fact that it is part of the curtilage of a listed structure and therefore should not have been breached without permission, and that permission was refused and should be refused again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Chandler. Councillor James.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, this will be the third time that I've considered this matter over the many months. And I must start off by saying that I agree with everything that Linda Carter said on behalf of the Parish Council here. That is why I was in favour of approving the original application, and I've voted against enforcement when unauthorised works were carried out. And the reason that I'm staying consistent this evening is because of the experience I've gained as the Daventry District Councillor of rebuilding historic walls and finding that it's not always possible to rebuild an historic wall without using modern materials. In some cases, up to 50% of a wall might not be part of the original materials of that wall. Or the coping stones, for example, might not be original. They may be modern, but nevertheless, the final objective, or the final objective leading to the aim, is achieved. This is quite clearly a case where there is less than substantial harm to a heritage asset, and that harm is significantly outweighed by the public benefits that will be obtained by improving the sight lines along this lane and providing for additional car parking space. So I, tonight, am going to vote against officers' advice because I want to remain consistent and true to my principles and beliefs, both as an individual and as a chartered surveyor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James. Councillor Ritchie next.
Thank you. In terms of this public benefit that people have spoken of, yes, it might provide another parking space. Now, I'm not a regular visitor to Upper Stowe, but I have never been through Upper Stowe and had any sense of the place being congested or cluttered with cars. We're not talking about the centre of Daventry or the centre of Northampton or anywhere else. We're talking about a quiet rural village. I think this is nonsense. If that is the only public benefit, now there has been a discussion from some councillors about whether we go with the people or whether we go with officers. That's nonsense. The whole regime of having listed buildings is there to protect their environment, to protect our heritage for everyone, not just for the people who happen to live in big houses and live round about it. It's there for everybody that wants to travel through the countryside. It may be that the people of Upper Stowe are not particularly fussed about what their village looks like, but other people are, and it's part of our heritage, and it is not just theirs. And that is why I would come down very, very firmly on the side of officers saying that, look, this has been a listed property. This should not have happened. This should not be changed. I've got to admit that when this application first came up, I was against it, but I wasn't hugely concerned about which way the decision would go. But the more I hear, the more that I read here about the comments from the inspector, I'm firmly of the view that it would be entirely wrong, entirely unprincipled to allow this to go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. People keep talking about the wall, but if you look at the inspector's report, section 13, when he says, I'm not convinced, however, that this would constitute a public benefit of the scheme if the wall is required to have works carried out of it anyway. So he's actually dismissing that. Also, if you then go on to his conclusion, it has not been shown that public benefits, which another councillor has mentioned, would outweigh this harm, and the proposal would conflict with the framework and then various policies. So here we go again. It's against this. We've gone out, the inspector's come, and he's made a decision, and that's the decision. Work has now been carried out contrary to an inspector's decision. Therefore, to be consistent, I support officer's advice. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
I've got no more speakers indicated, and I don't have a proposal yet. Well, I do have a hand sticking up again. David, Councillor James. Councillor James, you wish to say anything?
Thank you, Chairman. Well, of course, I wish to refer to the comments of Councillor Parker. Of course, when considering whether or not any less than significant harm or significant harm is caused to a heritage asset, any such opinion is purely subjective, and we can all have differing opinions. In just the same way as in toto, we can have differing opinions about this particular case. As one of those that gave evidence here on behalf, I refer to the planning consultant, who's an expert in these matters. He has opinions too, and they may differ from opinions of those on the committee. Similarly, so may the clerk of the parish council have different opinions. These are the subjective matters which which we use to underpin the final aim of what we're trying to achieve. Now, a reference has been made to there are no parking problems at Stowe. Well, this particular planning committee did in fact refuse an application for a holiday let in the high street there some couple of 2-3 years ago, purely because of parking problems which were raised then. So these villages out here are not immune from parking problems. In fact, in many ways, they're worse than in some of the suburban and town areas. So there is definitely a public benefit to be achieved. And I think that that far outweighs the rebuilding of a wall, which will not have all of the original stones there, because many of them will just simply break up once they're moved and hustled about. And you'll end up with bits of other stone put in anyway. So it won't be the original wall. And as I said before, we as the council, as councillors, have great experience of rebuilding historic walls, not to their original height, nor in total of their original length, using less than half of the reclaimed materials. So, you know, we have to be consistent. Let's be consistent on this one. And I say for this particular matter, especially where the parish council has been in favour of it, that we must accede to the wishes of the local population and go against officers' advice on this and do something of benefit to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, the next three speakers are Councillor Irving Swift, Councillor Ritchie and Councillor Smith. Councillor Irving Swift.
Thank you. I listened to the debate, and as usual, it's quite fractious. But we know that site very well. So when the previous speaker said we should defer, that is not an option, because we have discussed the matter of the wall already at length at a previous meeting. And we also have an inspector decision. And I think to carry on after an inspector decision, if we go against officer advice, we will set a very dangerous precedent. So I would propose we go with officer advice. That is my proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, do you have a seconder? I can see a hand in the middle. Councillor Parker, do you wish to say anything in addition to what you've said?
No, Chair, I'm just happy to second the proposal.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
sorry, Chairman, can I just interrupt you very
I don't know
quickly?
who's interrupting, but you is that
It's Chong.
Chong?
Yeah.
Yes, you can as an officer.
There's been a lot of discussion about the wall, about the public benefits being weighed against the removal of the wall. But I do want to add, it is not just purely the wall. Obviously, in order to accommodate the garage, which only provides one parking space, there's a necessity to regrade that bank as well. And you'll recall from the report that at this current stage, the Highway Authority are objecting to those works because they feel that it will undermine the integrity of the highway at this particular stage. So it is not just the wall itself, it is the regrading of the embankment together with those works and with the concerns raised by the Highway Authority at this particular stage. That's the cumulative effects of providing one parking space.
Thank you, Chung, for clarifying that position. Councillor Ritchie.
Just, if I may, Chair, through you, ask for an explanation from Councillor James. I rather got the impression that what he was saying, that there wasn't such a thing as professionalism and expert judgment when it came to heritage issues. I think that it sounded very, very dangerous that this is all just a matter of our individual judgments. I think that there is a body of evidence and thought that is there that we need to access. And I just feel it just sounded as if it was a sort of end of term moment in which the committee might want to say, well, we'll just say whatever we like.
Thank you. Right, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Interesting debate. We've got two choices here. We can be pragmatic. Local members are in agreement with the parish council. There's no doubt in relation to the harm that's been done. And so it's got to be fixed. So do we allow it to be fixed with a entrance through a garage door, or do we allow it to be fixed without? That's what we're really talking about here. Clearly, there is harm. The harm is done. It can't be undone. The committee's very, very experienced. There's a lot of discussion gone on this, as Councillor James said 3 times. And I would go against officers' advice, but I can't add anything to it. I mean, you guys know what you're talking about. Thank you.
Okay. I have a hand from our legal man.
Chairman, yeah, if I can just clarify this point, really to support the planning officer's report, in the sense that it clearly states that any harm is classed as significant harm on the one hand, and on the second hand, it is the point that you are just simply deciding whether or not the public benefit outweighs the harm, where clearly this committee has previously decided where potentially 2 parking spaces were going to be provided wasn't sufficient to allow this permission. Such decision was supported by the planning inspectorate, and yet there seems to be a lot of discussion about trying to seek to provide that 1 parking space is sufficient public benefit to override those 2 previous decisions. I would just clarify that that is the decision that the committee is making. It's not based on whether or not the local members or the neighbours want it. That is the decision on whether or not the public benefit outweighs the harm set against the previous decisions from both this committee and the planning inspector.
Thank you, sir. Right, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Oh, that's okay, because the internet was starting to go funny again. Right, we have a proposal that the application be refused for the given reasons, which has been seconded. All those in favour, over to Jeverley.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Chartler.
For.
Councillor Cribbin.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
For.
Councillor Frost.
Abstain.
Sorry, abstain.
Abstain, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Harris.
For.
Councillor Evans-Swift.
For.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Longley.
Against.
Councillor Matton.
Apologies, at 4.
4, thank you. Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie.
For.
Councillor Robertson.
4.
Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Wesley.
Against.
And Chairman.
4.
Okay. 10 in favour. 4 against, 1 abstention. 10 in favour, 4 against, and 1 abstention, Chairman.
Thank you. The application is refused for the given reasons. Well, that concludes tonight's meeting, ladies and gentlemen.
Sorry, Chairman.
Yeah.
Are we going to do the second application as well, the listed building one? We're going to.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry. You know, it's about time I retired, isn't it?
No.
Right. Now the second application, the listed building part. Again, give generally your view, please. So, sorry, do you want me to?
Propose in a second.
Yeah, do you want?
I propose again.
Okay, you propose the same thing again.
And I'll
right,
second
okay.
as well, Chair.
And you second again. Right,
Yes, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, so we have a proposal and a seconder. We've had the debate, and so we shan't have any more debate on it. We'll go straight to a vote. Okay. So the proposal is refusal for both of them. So we're on the second one now. Jeverley, over to you.
So, Councillor Chartler.
For.
Councillor Cribbin.
For.
Councillor Dabbs.
For.
Councillor Frost.
Abstain.
Councillor Harris.
For.
Councillor Evans-Swift.
For.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Longley.
Against.
Councillor Matton.
For.
Councillor Parker.
For.
Councillor Ritchie,
For.
Councillor Robertson,
For.
Councillor Smith,
Against.
and Councillor Wesley,
Against.
and you, Chairman.
4.
So that's 10 in favour, 4 against, and 1 abstention again, Chairman.
Okay, so both applications are refused for the given reasons of officers. Again, this time I think we have finished. I don't think I've missed anything out. And when I say we've finished what I call for good. As far as I am, as far as I'm concerned, this is my last meeting. So I'm going to take this opportunity to thank, first of all, a damn good committee, and I mean a good committee. A lot of you have joined at all different stages of knowing nothing, along with people that knew quite a bit about planning. You've all sort of integrated well. You're all expressing opinions. You're coming up with proper planning facts. I actually think it's a very, very good committee. And as I've sat through many, many years now of committees, the quality is pretty good at the moment, and I mean pretty good. So I hope you all get re-elected and go back on the planning committee. Officers, I have to say, again, because I've been here so long, we've got a smashing group of officers. We really are. A dedicated lot that work pretty hard for Daventry. It's a lovely atmosphere in planning department if you've ever been there. Very nice atmosphere, very nice bunch of people, smashing. The people that serve the planning committee, like Jeff and Marina, they're great as well. They eat a lot of cakes and pies, but they're great. I've known them a lot of years, and they're still happy and chirpy all the time. So again, some thanks to them. And if you're still listening, Barry, I still like you. Barry Wayne was an officer at the council when I first came, and he's very good, along with a lot of applicants' agents. Anyway, I'm going to say thanks to you all. There's a couple of hands up, so I'll go to you, Councillor Parker.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say, on behalf, I think, of everybody, to thank you for everything, for the service, most certainly to Daventry District Council and to the parish that you've served over a vast number of years. I know you're not going forward as a candidate into the unitary, and I think you'll be sorely missed, most certainly on this committee. And all I can say is I wish you all the best for the future, sir.
Thanks, Kevin. Cecile.
Chairman, I wanted to wish you well. I can speak on 2 accounts. I am the only woman on the committee as a member, and I am the only French one. So I can say from my point of view, which is a lonely point of view, thank you. You have been a great chairman. Yes, you had a bunch of sometimes righteous councillor, but somehow we all had point to make. We tried to make it as nicely and as competently as we could, but you had a nice manner. We will miss you, and if we are re-elected, and if I am back, maybe I will be on the planning committee, but it's a lot of time, and officer might want a break from the old faces, but I wish you all well, and Chairman, thank you for all those years of dedication. And finally, I know that the last year with the Zoom meeting, it hasn't been easy for any of us, and I think we have learned how to cope with the technology, but I miss the old committee system, so let's hope that we go back to the norm soon. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure you will. And thanks for those nice, kind words. And there's another hand there. Councillor Mann.
Sorry, Chair, I had I was applauding what was being said. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Right, I think that's it. Again, thank you all. Goodbye, and have a good time on the new committee. All the best to you.
Thank you, Chairman.